In this video, we'll demonstrate the best free official Blender extensions for rigging and animation. I'll assume that you know how to use the extensions platform. If you don't, I have a detailed video about that. Or TLDR, this is the extension platform where you can discover officially supported Blender add-ons. Once you know what you're looking for, you just go to Blender, Edit, Preferences, Get Extensions, Allow online access, then just find the extension that you want and click install. Alright, let's see what tools we can find and how they can improve our rigging and animation workflow. If you're animating, you know how you have the playback buttons here in the timeline, but if you switch to the graph editor or dope sheet, you don't have them anymore. I always found this annoying, but luckily we have a solution. Go to Get Extensions, search for Timeline Buttons, and install it. And just like that, you have your playback buttons in all animation editors. Dope sheet, graph editor, nonlinear animation. Regardless, you'll have the buttons and you'll also have the frame range control here. Super cool. This is one of the extensions that I always enable. On a similar note, you know how when you have an animation and you play it, Blender will just keep looping it forever. There is no default function to prevent this, so if that bothers you, go to Edit, Preferences, Extensions, look for Unloop, and install the Unlooped add-on. Once you do, you'll get this new function in your timeline, and when it's enabled, you'll get the default behavior. But if you disable it, then you can play the animation and it will stop as soon as it hits the last keyframe. If you're looking for even more looping functionality and control, there is another extension which, however, hasn't been approved yet. But it looks like it's going to allow all sorts of loops like play and stop, play and restore, and ping pong, like going back and forth. Looks interesting, so you can download it and install it manually, but it's not yet part of the extensions platform. And another common issue in animation is when you enable auto keying, but then you forget that you had it enabled and you do something that you weren't supposed to do and that gets recorded as a keyframe. That is because this indication of auto keying is not very obvious. So we have an extension to address this. Let's go to Get Extensions and look for Auto Key Highlight. Install it. And as soon as you do, you'll get this highlight around your 3D viewport when you have auto keying enabled, and it will disappear when you disable it. If you go to add-ons and find the auto key highlight add-on, you can actually customize the behavior. You can make the border width even thicker and change the color. And here is another common animation annoyance and the extension that can solve it. Here I have a walking animation for this character that is 44 frames long. And then I want to switch to the dance animation, which is 213 frames. Now I have to set this here. And then if I want to go back to the previous one, I have to set the range end again. This gets annoying really quickly. But enable the Action to Scene Range add-on. And then in the action editor, expand the end panel and enable manual frame range for this action and also for every action where you want to have automatic adjustment of the frame range. Right? Now, as soon as I switch to my A2 action, frame range will be set to 44 and A1 213. Super useful. And if you like this, but you also want some extra action management functionality on top of that, I can recommend the Action Commander add-on. It's not a free extension, it's a paid add-on, but I personally use it all the time. And another quick recommendation, check out the sponsor of this video, Brilliant. Brilliant is an interactive learning platform with thousands of hands-on lessons, including topics like geometry, logic, and Python that are relevant to Blender users. I've personally been revising some of my math and Python fundamentals with Brilliant, and I like their visual problem-solving approach. Brilliant is a great way to stay sharp, and you can build up your core skills, which could support your understanding of creative and technical topics like rigging and animation. You can try everything Brilliant has to offer free for 30 days at brilliant.org/cgdive. And you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Okay, next in the curve editor, When working on an animation, you may want to only focus on the location, rotation, or scale curves, and the way I usually do it is by typing location in the search or X location, but again, that gets annoying. Let's go to our extensions, and let's find filter channels, install, and now in the N panel of the curve editor, you'll find filter channels. And now if I want to work on the X location, I just click on location X, and that is all I'm going to see. And that affects all bones. If you want to include multiple curves, you have to shift and click. And I wish there was some highlight showing me what is being filtered, but it's useful nevertheless. But here's the biggest problem I noticed. In Blender, usually bones are in quaternion modes, but this add-on seems to only work for Euler rotations. So the rotation filtering here will not work for me at all. And I'm going to report this, but other than that, the concept of this add-on is really cool. When animating, we can draw the motion path of an object or bone, but if we edit the motion in the graph editor, the motion path does not update automatically. So I have to press Update Paths. With the Real-Time Paths extension, this changes. Let's install it. And you'll find it under the N panel of the graph editor. And I had to press Deactivate and Activate again. And now if I tweak a curve, you'll see the path updating simultaneously in the viewport. I'm sure animators will like this. Here is something interesting if you're using the NLA. Here I have the walking animation and I've added another action above it, set to combine, which tweaks the hand position. Normally, if we want to combine this into a single action, I would have to bake the action. But if we look for NLA and we install the Merge NLA Strips add-on, we can then just select these two strips, right-click, Merge NLA Strips. And instantaneously our action was merged into a separate strip. And a new action was created. So honestly, I'm not sure how this works. The add-on developer explains that it doesn't use built-in baking, just copy-pastes all keyframes from selected strips quickly. For now, all I can say is that it seems to work, and it seems to work really well and quickly. The next extension we'll take a look at is called AnimAll, and it allows you to animate things that by default are impossible to keyframe and animate. So type AnimAll and install it. Something we cannot animate in edit mode are vertices. We can move them around, but we cannot directly keyframe their positions. But with this add-on, just go to Animation, AnimAll, enable Point Locations, insert keyframe, then go to another keyframe, move a vertex, and insert another keyframe. Now, nothing will happen yet because you have to go to Object Mode. Now the vertex will be animated. So here you see the type of data that you can animate, and I think the UV map is kind of interesting. This object has a texture which is controlled by UVs. So if I go to the UV editor and select all vertices, make sure UV map is enabled here. Then I can insert a keyframe, go to another keyframe, move the UVs, and again insert a key. Now, if I go back to object mode, you'll see that the UVs are actually animated. For any sort of camera work and camera movement, you may want to check out the Camera Shakify extension. If you just animate your camera with keyframes, it will generally look smooth and kind of boring. Let's find the Camera Shakify add-on and install it. Select your camera, go to the camera settings, find Camera Shakify and add a new preset. And right away you'll get something more shaky. You can play with the presets here, you can play with the influence and scale and speed of the effect, and you can even combine multiple types of shakes with each other. Commotion is a slightly older add-on, but still cool and very easy to use. I used to use it a lot when I needed to do some motion graphic works in my freelance work. I already have the extension installed and enabled, so here's how it works. We have a bunch of separate objects. I'll keyframe them all and then give them a little animation. So now we have something super boring. But with Comotion, I can just select all of these objects and click the Offset Animation button. And that will offset the animation of each of these objects by 2 frames, which is set here. I can try 5, and that will have a slightly different effect. I can sort by random and offset. Or I can set the 3D cursor in the middle and use the cursor for offset, which gives me this effect. And this is the basis for a lot of motion graphics effects. If you work with more cartoony animations and you need some smears, which are basically the 2D equivalent of motion blur, then just find and enable the smear extension. Under bones, you can enter the main bones that will be smearing, and they need to be comma separated, which can be a little bit annoying to set up. Here I'll just use the left hand, and then just bake smears. That will add a geometry nodes modifier with all sorts of settings, and you can enable settings like elongate, which will create this type of smear, and you can control it with additional settings. There are also lines that you can play with, and of course a combination of these options as well. Especially if you're working with game engines, you gotta check out the OpenVAT extension. Let's install it. Alright, and then you need any type of animated object. It could be a character like this, or cloth simulation, soft body simulation, whatever. And you can turn these animations into vertex animation, which is supposedly very performant and very easy to import into game engines like Unity. So just select your animated object, set the output directory, and click Create VAT, and we'll have to wait for a minute or two. Okay, once it's done, you'll have a new object. Let's isolate it and play the animation. And you may be thinking, what's the big deal? We just have the same animation. Well, the big deal is that we don't have an armature modifier anymore. Everything is actually driven by this geometry nodes tree, and that itself is driven by this texture here. And that's pretty wild, and you can bake stuff like this and send it to game engines like Unity and have this complex animation be very performant and lightweight. Here is another way to create some sort of simulation, such as cloth, exportable to a game engine. Enable Mesh to Rig and go to the M2R tab. The add-on offers a very nice step-by-step process. First, you set the bone count. Let's increase that to 200 and create rig. That will create these random bones on top of your cloth object. I'll go to edit mode, and in individual origins, I'll scale up these bones just so I can see them. And then we'll go to step 2, parent with automatic weights. Then step 3, and that will constrain the bones so that they follow the cloth. Then we'll bake the bones. And finally, step 5, finalize. Now, I found that this didn't quite work. So I have to select the object, go to physics, and remove the cloth. I think the add-on is supposed to do that, but it doesn't. With this step, I'm going to have a much better result. It is not the same as the baked action, but it's close, and depending on what you're baking, it may look just right. The main thing that will affect your results is the bone count at the beginning. If you have a custom rig with an IK-FK switch, you may also want IK-FK snapping. Now, snapping usually requires a Python script, but there is an extension that solves the problem. By the way, this rig is from my new course, Rigging Isn't Scary. It's completely free here on YouTube. So even if you're new to rigging, you can learn the fundamentals quickly, and you can build this rig with IK-FK switching and many other nice features. Now for IK-FK snapping, let's go to extensions and find the IK-FK snapping tool. Install it. It is here under IK-FK snap. And now we have to define a couple of bones so that the add-on knows which bones to snap. So I'll set up the left arm. These are the FK bones. So I'll paste the name of my upper arm here. I can even use the picker and choose the lower arm. And then FK end is the hand. Now for the IK, I have to unhide the IK mechanisms. Some understanding of your rig is essential. So that is my upper arm IK. That is the lower arm, and this is the hand. So I'll just insert the names here. Next, the IK control is this here, and the IK pole is this. Now, the last two entries are the most difficult to understand. Basically, you need a copy of your IK target and IK pole, so I'll select them both, I'll go to edit mode, Shift D and duplicate them, and I'll go to local mode. And with individual origins, I'll scale these bones up a little bit. Right, and now this copy that I created of the IK target needs to be parented to the FK arm, so I'll shift select it, go to edit mode, Control P, keep offset. And then back to pose mode, the bigger pole, which is the copy, I have to parent to the upper FK arm. So shift select it, go to edit mode, Control P, keep offset. And now I'll copy this name and paste it into the IK target, and then copy the name of the pole copy and paste it into the last section. Okay, now I'm in IK mode, so let's snap the IK to FK. And as you can see, my IK went exactly where the FK was. Right, let's do it again, snap to FK. Nice. Now I'm going to switch to FK mode and go back to IK FK snap, and now I can snap to the IK. So that snaps my FK bones to the IK. And you'll have to set up your other arm and the legs the same way. That is probably the easiest way to have IK FK snapping without any Python scripting. Okay, if you're working with a rig and you're wondering why is it so slow, you can enable the profiling body extension. Now select your mesh and go to your modifiers and check out what information you get from the add-on. So here we see that the armature modifier itself takes under a millisecond to evaluate. Corrective smooth takes 3 milliseconds, and then subdivision takes 500 milliseconds or half a second. So that is definitely the bottleneck. If you set levels to 0 or just disable the viewport display of the subdivision surface, then your rig will start behaving in real time. Now, corrective smooth is marked in red. That is just because it is the heaviest modifier right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a problem. I wish we could have something similar for constraints, but I don't think it's available right now. Now, honestly, I've never had the need to randomize the positions of bones, but if you do, there is an extension for that. Find the randomize bones extension and install it, and you have to be in object mode, and you'll find the randomize bones panel. And then again in object mode, you just click randomize location, rotation, or scale, and that will give you a random position for these bones. That is a pose bone position. In edit mode, the bones will be untouched. And if you want to tie your character into a knot, you can definitely do so. Bendy bones are a powerful Blender feature. In this rig, this segment is actually a single bone, which uses bendy bones to achieve advanced deformations. But bendy bones are a Blender-only feature. You cannot export them to a game engine, for example. But here is a possible solution. Install the Bendy Bones toolkit. Go to Edit Mode and select your bendy bone. Go to B-Bones Tools. Here you can set the number of bendy bone segments that you want, and then just click Convert B-Bones to Bones. Click OK. And now you may not realize it right away, but these are actually individual bones which follow your bendy bone. Now I'm going to make my B-bone non-deforming, and the new bones are already deforming. So then I'll parent again with automatic weights. And now this rig uses the B-bone as a controller, but the mesh itself is deformed by these individual bones, and this can be exported. Quite a while ago, I made a video about how to do this manually. Check it out if you need more information about why we do this and the whole process. Cloud Rig is an automatic rigging system similar to Rigify. I'm just mentioning it in passing here because this add-on is fairly complex. When you enable it, you'll have access to some Cloud Rig meta rigs. And if you have experience with Rigify, then you know what to do. You align your rig to your character, and when you're done, you press the Cloud Rig Generate button, and that will give you the final rig. Learning resources for Cloud Rig are a bit limited, but I'll share some in the video description. If you need to do any sort of fish animation, you have to check out the Fish Sim extension. I'll install it. And under add-ons, make sure that Rigify is also enabled because Fish Sim uses Rigify. To work with this add-on, you need a fish that is rigged with either the Shark Meta Rig or the special Fish Sim Goldfish Meta Rig. Or you could use the presets from the add-on. You could press Add Fish and choose from Bull Shark, Goldfish, or Archerfish. Okay, all of these fish will work with this add-on. I'm going to undo and just use my shark here. So the first step is to add a target and then offset this target to where your fish needs to go. Then select the Rigify rig and press Simulate. And you'll get this animation of the fish going towards the target. And once it reaches it, it's going to start circling around like this. So when you need to create an underwater scene and you want to save yourself some time, check out this add-on. If you have a rigged character or object with soft parts like these, you may want to give these parts automatic secondary motion. For this object, I already have a simple animation. Now, if I go to extensions, I can enable the Rig Flex Soft Body Simulation for Armatures extension. So here's how it works. I have to select all of the bones that I want to become soft body or dynamic or wiggly. And I actually have a collection. I'll just click select here and then I have to press initialize. Now here is a little issue I have with this add-on. It actually created a new collection with the flex bones and I believe it changes the hierarchy of your bones. Also, if I go to my object, you'll see that I have these flex groups. So it changed the deforming bones and my vertex groups. Sometimes that may not be what you want. But anyway, what you do next is just set the start and end of the simulation and you click bake. And here we have the final result. If you want to change the stiffness, you can change it here and click initialize again and bake again. So very nice and simple, and aside from the way it changes your bones, I really like it. If you want to explore more of this type of add-on, I'll share a link to my resource site and you can go to rigging and then dynamic bones and you will find over a dozen of this type of wiggle, jiggle, flex, spring and so on bone add-ons. In the future, I hope to test and compare all of these add-ons and present it as a video. When you import a rigged character into Blender, this is a common problem: weirdly oriented bones. I have a video about why this happens, but if you want to have nicer representation of these bones, find the Fake Bones extension and install it. Under Armature, find Fake Bones and click Create Fake Bones. Now, if you go to Pose Mode, you will have an armature that is a little bit easier to understand. In fact, I believe it looks a lot like a Maya armature now. Keep in mind that this is just a visual trick. The lines between the bones are just empties, and if you go to edit mode, we'll have the exact same orientation of the bones. So this armature within Blender still has some limitations. For example, if you try to apply automatic weights, that won't work well. Or if you wanted to set up an IK mechanism, that will probably be difficult as well. But other than that, this looks a lot nicer. MPFB is a human character generator for Blender. If you've heard of Make Human, this is basically Make Human but integrated right into the Blender interface. When you install it, you'll find it in the end panel. You can create a new human from scratch. And then you can go to Model and start tweaking various parts of the model to make it look exactly as you like. You also have some rigging presets. We can automatically add a Rigify rig, but it seems like only the game engine skeleton is supported, so let's undo and use the game engine rig and then generate a Rigify rig. So not only can you generate a character, but you can also automatically rig it with a couple of clicks. The Make Human characters are not bad, but if you need higher quality characters, you may want to check out the paid Human Generator add-on. Next, I'm going to be sharing some weight painting add-ons with you, and Easy Weight is extremely powerful. This add-on has a lot of features, so it's not something I can present in a minute or two, but I have an older video about it, and I'll link to it in the video description. Now we'll keep exploring other weight painting add-ons. Okay, here we have a skinned character, and let's say that we want to add a jacket that will follow the existing weights. We can do this with a technique called weight transfer. It's not too difficult to do manually, but there is an add-on called Vertex Group Assistant that makes this process even simpler. Once you install it, select your jacket or clothing, shift select the mesh that already has weights, then go to Data Properties, expand the additional Vertex Group options, and here we have the new operators that the add-on added. I'll do a quick transfer of vertex groups. And now my jacket is weighted and moving with the main character. When using automatic weights, you can use a technique called support bones to get better results out of the automatic algorithm. Without support bones, we get deformations like these, but with support bones, we get something much better. However, now we have these additional bones which we may not want. There is an extension that will keep you these improved automatic weights, but also remove the additional bones. Find the Bone and Vertex Group Merge extension and install it. Now in edit mode, select the bones that you want to merge, and finally shift select the bone that you want to merge to. Then right click and choose Merge Bones. And now, even though these bones disappeared, we'll have the same good automatic weights. So let's do it for the remaining bones. And the add-on even cleans up your vertex groups. My support bones were called support, but as you can see, there are no support vertex groups anymore. When you have to skin hard surface objects to a rig, that can be time consuming. So there's an extension that aims to make this a little bit easier. Find Skin Mesh to Bone and install it. Now I have the upper arm, lower arm and hand as separate objects. So what I need to do is select the upper arm, for example, shift select the rig, go to Object and Skin Mesh to Bone. Now here is a part where the add-on could have been much better. I have to select which bone the upper arm needs to be parented to or weighted to. And the only way to select the bone is to go through this list, which for a complex rig is kinda tedious. If we could use the selected bone or just type the name of the bone, that could have been so much better. But anyway, I'm going to find my DEF bones and find the upper arm.L. I'll disable mirror because this character is not symmetrical, and I'll enable clear vertex groups just in case, and press OK. Now this part of the mesh is fully skinned to the bone. Let's do it with the lower arm. And press OK. And finally do the same with the hand. So this is already quite useful, but with just a slight UX improvement, this add-on could be great. There is another similar add-on. Find the Armature Deform with linked groups and install it. And this add-on theoretically should be able to skin this entire mechanical arm automatically. Let me show you how it works in a very simple object. So here I have this armature and very simple boxes which are a single object. I'll select the object, shift select the armature, go to Object, Parent, and Armature Deform with linked groups. And as you can see, that automatically parented each box to only one bone. So it seems to work nice with simple meshes, but this mechanical arm, for example, was too much for it, I guess. I'll join all meshes, delete the vertex groups, Alt-P and clear the parent. There is no armature modifier, so let's give it a try. I'll shift select the rig, Object, Parent, Armature Deform with linked groups. And yes, nothing happened. So this add-on can work for simple meshes, but I guess don't expect too much with complex ones. There are a couple more weight painting extensions. I don't have an example for import-export skin weights, but I can see how it can be useful in production. If you have characters with the exact same topology or UVs, you could export the weights of one character and import them onto another, which could save you a lot of time weight painting. That was quite a list, but there are even more extensions. Way too many to cover in a single video. Some of them just didn't make sense to me, others are awesome but they require more time to cover properly. In the comments, please share your favorite extensions. And let me know if there is an add-on that you would like me to cover next. Thank you and see you in another video.